Lisa never thought her life could change so quickly. At 28 years old, she had everything she had always dreamed of. She worked as a nurse at the local children's hospital, helping sick kids get better every day. It was hard work, but seeing a child smile after weeks of treatment made every long shift worth it. Her small house on Maple Street looked like something from a fairy tale. White picket fence, red roses growing by the front door, and a cozy kitchen, where she loved making Sunday morning pancakes. She had painted every room herself, choosing soft colors that made the house feel warm and welcoming. But the best part of her life was Tom. They had been together for 6 whole years, ever since. They met in college. Tom was the kind of guy who remembered her favorite coffee order and always knew how to make her laugh after a tough day at the hospital. He worked at a local insurance company and seemed to have his life together just like she did. Every evening, they would sit on their back porch planning their future. They talked about getting married next spring, maybe having kids in a few years, and taking that trip to Europe they had been saving for. Lisa felt so lucky to have found someone who wanted the same simple, happy life she did. Their friends always said they were the perfect couple. Tom would bring her lunch at the hospital sometimes, and all the other nurses would say how sweet he was. During their weekend trips to the farmer's market, other couples would look at them with envy. Everything seemed so right, so secure. Lisa never noticed the small changes at first. Tom started staying late at work more often. He seemed tired all the time and would sometimes stare at his phone with a worried look on his face. When she asked if everything was okay, he would just smile and say work was keeping him busy. She believed him because she had no reason not to. The bills started arriving in the mail with Tom's name on them. Credit card companies calling during dinner time. Tom would always take these calls in the other room, speaking in whispers. When Lisa asked about it, he would say it was just work stuff or maybe a wrong number. She trusted him completely, so she never pushed for more answers. One day, Lisa decided to surprise Tom by paying some of their bills early. She went online to check their joint savings account to see how much money they had. What she saw made her heart stop. The account was almost empty. They had saved $15,000 over the years, and now there was only $300 left. She checked the account history with shaking hands. Money had been taken out almost every week for the past 6 months. Small amounts at first, then bigger and bigger withdrawals. All of them were made by Tom. Lisa felt sick to her stomach. Where had all their money gone? When Tom came home that evening, Lisa was sitting at the kitchen table with the bank statement spread out in front of her. She had been crying for hours, trying to understand what was happening. The man she loved and trusted had been lying to her for months. Tom saw the papers, and his face went white. For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Lisa asked the question that would change everything. "Where is our money, Tom?" The truth came out slowly, like water from a cracked dam. Tom had been going to the casino after work. It started small, just $20 here and there for fun. But then he started losing, and instead of stopping, he kept going back, trying to win the money back. Each loss made him more desperate to play again. He had borrowed money from dangerous people when their savings ran out. Men who didn't care about excuses or promises to pay later. They wanted their money back, and they wanted it now. Tom owed them $25,000, money he didn't have and couldn't get. Lisa listened to all of this in shock. The man she thought she knew had been living a secret life for months. All those late nights at work, all those whispered phone calls, all those lies. She felt like she was looking at a stranger. "I can fix this," Tom kept saying, pacing around their kitchen like a trapped animal. "I just need more time. Maybe I can borrow money from your family or we can sell the house." But Lisa knew it was too late for simple solutions. The trust between them was broken. Maybe forever. She told Tom he needed to get help, that they needed to face this problem together honestly. She still loved him, even after everything, and She wanted to help him get better. Tom seemed to agree. He said he would call a counselor in the morning and figure out how to deal with the people he owed money to. For one night, Lisa allowed herself to hope that maybe they could work through this together. The next evening, Tom came home with an unusual request. He wanted to take her on a drive up to the mountains. He said he had found a little cabin where they could spend the weekend talking and figuring out their next steps. It would be just the two of them, away from all the stress and problems. Lisa thought it sounded like a good idea. Maybe getting away from everything would help them think more clearly. She packed a small bag with warm clothes and some snacks for the drive. As they got in the car, Tom seemed nervous, but she thought it was just because of everything they were going through. The drive took longer than expected. They went deeper into the mountains than Lisa had ever been before. The roads got smaller and more winding. There were no other cars around, no houses, no signs of other people anywhere. Lisa started to feel uneasy, but Tom kept saying they were almost there. When they finally stopped, Lisa realized something was very wrong. This wasn't a romantic cabin getaway. There were two men waiting in the darkness, men she had never seen before. They looked angry and dangerous. Tom got out of the car and walked over to them, leaving Lisa sitting alone, confused and scared. She could hear them talking, but couldn't make out the words. Then Tom came back to the car, but he wouldn't look at her. His hands were shaking as he opened her door. "I'm sorry, Lisa," he whispered. "I'm so sorry." Those were the last words he spoke to her before he walked away into the darkness, leaving her alone with strangers in the middle of nowhere. The woman who had trusted him with her whole heart watched the taillights of their car disappear down the mountain road. Lisa finally understood that the man she loved had not only stolen their money and lied to her for months. He had brought her here as payment for his debts. The person she had planned to marry, the person she had trusted with her life, had traded her safety for his own freedom. As the cold mountain air hit her face and the reality of her situation became clear, Lisa realized that everything she thought she knew about love, trust, and the life they had built together had been nothing but an illusion. The silence that followed was the loudest thing Lisa had ever heard. She stood there in the darkness, watching the red lights of Tom's car disappear around the mountain curve. The two men had also vanished into the night, leaving her completely alone in a place she didn't recognize. The first thing that hit her was the cold. February in the Colorado mountains is nothing like February in the city. The wind cut through her light jacket like it was made of paper. She had dressed for a romantic dinner, not for surviving in the wilderness. Her thin sweater and regular jeans felt useless against the freezing air. Lisa's nursing training kicked in before panic could take over. She knew that staying calm was the difference between life and death. She had seen enough patients come into the emergency room with hypothermia to know the signs. The shivering that was already starting, the way her fingers were beginning to feel numb, the exhaustion creeping into her bones. She had maybe a few hours before the cold would become truly dangerous. She started walking, even though she had no idea which direction to go. The road they had driven up was barely visible in the moonlight, winding back down the mountain like a dark ribbon. But walking down that road in the dark could be just as dangerous as staying put. She could fall off the edge or get lost on one of the many smaller trails that branched off from the main path. As she walked, Lisa tried to remember everything she knew about survival. Keep moving to stay warm, but don't sweat because wet clothes would make the cold worse. Look for shelter. Find water if possible. But don't eat snow because it would lower her body temperature even more. Most importantly, don't give up hope. After what felt like hours but was probably only 30 minutes, Lisa saw something that made her heart jump. There was a small building tucked back in the trees, barely visible in the darkness. As she got closer, she realized it was an old hunting cabin. The windows were boarded up and there was a thick chain across the front door. But it was shelter. The back door was easier to break than she expected. The wood was old and rotted in some places. Using a rock, Lisa managed to break the lock and push her way inside. The cabin smelled like dust and old wood, but it was warmer than being outside. She used the flashlight on her phone to look around, trying to save the battery as much as possible. The cabin was small, just 2 rooms with basic furniture covered in dust sheets. But in the back room, Lisa found things that felt like treasures. There were old blankets in a chest, canned food on shelves, and even some matches in a coffee can. Someone had used this place for hunting trips and left supplies behind. Lisa's hands were shaking so badly from the cold that it took several tries to light a match. She found some old newspapers and pieces of broken furniture to burn in the small fireplace. The first bit of warmth from the flames felt like the most beautiful thing she had ever experienced. As the fire grew stronger, Lisa began to think more clearly. She wrapped herself in the dusty blankets and opened a can of beans with a knife she found in a drawer. The food was cold and tasted awful, but she forced herself to eat it. Her body needed energy to fight the cold. The first night was the longest of her life. Every sound outside made her jump. Was it just the wind, or was someone coming back for her? The fire kept going out, and each time she had to rebuild it with numb fingers. She dozed off for a few minutes at a time, but never really slept. When morning finally came, Lisa felt a mix of relief and despair. She had survived one night, but how many more could she handle? She still had no idea where she was or how far it might be to the nearest road or town. Her phone had no signal, and the battery was getting low. But Lisa refused to just sit and wait to be found. She was a nurse, trained to help people in emergencies. Now she had to use that training to help herself. She made a plan for each day. In the mornings, she would walk around the area looking for signs of other people or ways to signal for help. In the afternoons, she would gather firewood and look for more supplies. In the evenings, she would keep the fire burning and try to stay warm. On the second day, Lisa found a creek about a quarter-mile from the cabin. The water was freezing cold, but clean. She also discovered that the cabin had a small storage shed behind it with more useful things. There was an old axe for cutting wood, some rope, and even a tarp she could use to collect rainwater. The third day brought a light snowfall that made everything more difficult. Lisa had to work twice as hard to keep the fire going, and walking outside became dangerous because of the slippery ground. But she didn't give up. She used pieces of metal from the cabin to spell out "help" in the small clearing in front of the building, hoping someone might see it from above. Her nursing knowledge helped her in ways she never expected. She knew how to check her own pulse and breathing to make sure she wasn't getting too weak. She understood which parts of her body to keep warm and which signs meant she was in real trouble. When she noticed the beginning stages of frostbite on 2 of her toes, she knew exactly how to treat it with the limited supplies she had. The emotional part was harder than the physical challenges. During the long, cold nights, Lisa couldn't stop thinking about Tom. How could someone she loved so much have left her to die? She had supported him through difficult times before. When he lost his job 2 years ago, she had worked extra shifts to pay their bills. When his father died, she had held him while he cried. But she also thought about all the patients she had helped over the years. Kids who fought through cancer treatments that made them sick for months. Elderly people who learned to walk again after strokes. Parents who stayed by their children's bedsides for weeks, never giving up hope. If they could be strong, so could she. On the 4th morning, Lisa woke up to a sound she had been hoping to hear. It was faint at first, but definitely real. The sound of engines getting closer. She stumbled outside in her blankets and looked up at the sky. Through the trees, she could see movement on the mountain above her. With the last of her strength, Lisa ran back into the cabin and threw everything she could find onto the fire. Old magazines, pieces of furniture, even one of the blankets. The fire roared to life, sending thick black smoke up into the clear morning air. Then she waited, watching the sky and praying that someone would see her signal before it was too late. The smoke from Lisa's fire climbed high into the morning sky like a black ribbon against the white clouds. She stood outside the cabin in her dirty blankets, watching and waiting. Her heart was beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. This might be her only chance. The sound of the engines was getting louder now. Lisa could tell they were snowmobiles, not helicopters. That meant people were actually on the mountain, close enough to see her signal. She kept feeding things into the fire, making the smoke thicker and darker. Then she saw them. 3 figures on snowmobiles came around the bend in the distance, moving slowly across the white landscape. They were still far away, but Lisa started waving her arms and shouting as loud as she could. Her voice was weak from days of barely talking, but she screamed anyway. One of the riders stopped and pointed in her direction. Lisa felt a wave of relief so strong that her knees almost gave out. They had seen her. After 4 days of being completely alone, help was finally coming. The lead rider reached her first. He jumped off his snowmobile and ran toward her, and Lisa could see the concern on his face even through his helmet and goggles. He was tall and moved with the confidence of someone who knew what he was doing in these mountains. "Are you hurt?" he called out as he got closer. His voice was calm but urgent. "My name is Jake. I'm with Mountain Rescue. You're going to be okay now." Lisa tried to answer, but all that came out was a sob. She had been strong for 4 days, but now that help was here. All the fear and exhaustion hit her at once. Jake caught her as she stumbled, and she could feel how steady and warm he was through his heavy jacket. "Hey, it's okay," Jake said gently. "You're safe now. Can you tell me your name?" "Lisa," she managed to whisper. "I've been here for 4 days. I was left here. I didn't know if anyone would find me." Jake's expression changed when he heard this. His jaw tightened slightly, and Lisa could see anger flash in his eyes. But when he spoke to her, his voice stayed calm and reassuring. "4 days? That's incredible that you survived that long. You did everything right." He was already checking her pulse and looking at her hands and feet. "I can see you have some frostbite, but you kept yourself alive. That takes real courage." The other 2 rescue team members had arrived and were setting up equipment. Jake introduced them as Mike and Rebecca. They moved around Lisa like a well-trained team. But Jake stayed close to her, explaining everything they were doing. "We're going to get you warmed up and then get you down to the hospital," Jake said. "I need to ask you some questions while we work, okay? How did you end up here?" Lisa told them about Tom, about the gambling and the debt, about being brought here and abandoned. As she talked, she watched Jake's face. He didn't interrupt or judge. He just listened and nodded, like he had heard stories like this before and knew exactly how to help. "The person who left you here, do you know where he might have gone?" Jake asked while Rebecca checked Lisa's blood pressure. "I don't know," Lisa said. "He just drove away. I don't even know exactly where we are." "You're about 15 miles from the nearest town," Mike said. "This area isn't easy to find unless you know these mountains well. Someone had to tell him how to get here." Jake helped Lisa into a special sleeping bag designed to warm up people with hypothermia. As he worked, he kept talking to her in that same calm voice. There was something about the way he handled the situation that made Lisa feel safer than she had felt in months, even before Tom's betrayal. "You're a nurse, right?" Jake asked, and Lisa was surprised he could tell. "How did you know?" "The way you treated your frostbite, how you managed to stay alive out here. Most people would have panicked and made dangerous mistakes. You used your medical training to save yourself." Jake had been doing mountain rescue for 8 years, ever since he left the army. He had found people in all kinds of situations, but something about Lisa's story bothered him more than usual. Maybe it was how calm and strong she was despite everything that had happened to her. Or maybe it was the fact that someone had deliberately left her here to die. As they prepared to transport Lisa down the mountain, Jake made sure he was the one riding with her on the rescue sled. During the trip down, he kept checking on her and making sure she was warm enough. But he also found himself asking questions that weren't strictly medical. "Do you have family we should call?" he asked. "My sister lives in Denver," Lisa said, "but I don't want to scare her until I know I'm okay." "What about the man who brought you here? Should we be looking for him?" Lisa was quiet for a moment. "I don't know if I want him found or if I hope he stays lost forever." Jake understood that feeling. He had seen what betrayal could do to people, especially when it came from someone they loved and trusted. "You don't have to decide that right now," he said. "Right now, just focus on getting better." At the hospital, Jake stayed with Lisa through the emergency room check-in. He didn't have to. His job was technically done once she was safely delivered to medical care. But something made him want to make sure she was really okay. The doctors confirmed what Jake had suspected. Lisa had moderate frostbite on her toes and fingers, dehydration and exhaustion, but nothing that wouldn't heal completely. Her quick thinking and medical knowledge had saved her from serious permanent damage. "You should be able to go home in a couple of days," the doctor told her, "but you'll need to follow up with treatment for the frostbite." As Lisa settled into her hospital bed, Jake stopped by her room one more time before leaving. He brought her a cup of hot chocolate from the cafeteria and sat down in the chair next to her bed. "I've been doing rescue work for a long time," he said, "but I've never met anyone who handled a situation like yours so well. You should be proud of yourself." Lisa looked at this man who had literally saved her life. There was something different about him, something solid and trustworthy that she hadn't felt in a long time. "Thank you for finding me," she said. "I was starting to think no one would come." "We would have kept looking until we found you," Jake said simply. "That's what we do." As Jake got up to leave, he hesitated at the door. "I hope this isn't too forward, but would it be okay if I checked on you tomorrow, just to see how you're recovering?" Lisa smiled for the first time in days. "I'd like that." After Jake left, Lisa lay in her warm hospital bed, thinking about the last few hours. For 4 days, she had felt completely alone and abandoned. But now she had met someone who risked his own safety to help strangers, someone who stayed to make sure she was okay even when his job was finished. Maybe, Lisa thought as she drifted off to sleep, there were still good people in the world after all. Lisa's body healed faster than her heart. 2 weeks after leaving the hospital, her frostbite was getting better and her strength was coming back. But the nightmares were still there every night. She would wake up in a cold sweat, feeling like she was back in that freezing cabin, wondering if anyone would ever find her. Her sister Amy had moved in to help take care of her. Amy was wonderful, but she didn't really understand what Lisa was going through. She kept saying things like, "You're safe now, and you need to move on." Lisa knew Amy meant well, but it wasn't that simple. The worst part was that Lisa felt like she couldn't trust her own judgment anymore. She had been completely wrong about Tom. She had lived with him for 6 years and never suspected he was capable of leaving her to die. If she could be so wrong about someone she loved, how could she ever trust anyone again? Jake had kept his promise to check on her. He visited every few days, bringing books or soup from the deli down the street. Unlike everyone else, he never told Lisa how she should feel or when she should be over it. He just listened when she wanted to talk and sat quietly when she didn't. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed," Lisa told him one afternoon, as they sat on her back porch. "The phone calls, the missing money, the way he acted nervous all the time. How could I have been so blind?" Jake was quiet for a moment, watching the birds in her backyard. "When I was in the army, I had a buddy who seemed fine every day. Always joking around, always positive. Then one day he just broke down completely. None of us saw it coming." "What happened to him?" "He got help. It took time, but he got better. The point is, people can hide things really well when they want 2. That doesn't make you stupid for not seeing it. It makes them good at lying. This was what Lisa liked about Jake. He never made her feel foolish or weak. He talked to her like she was still the same smart, capable person she had always been. Just someone who had been through something terrible. As the weeks went by, Lisa started to notice things about Jake that made him different from anyone she had ever known. He always did exactly what he said he would do. If he said he would visit on Thursday, he was there on Thursday. If he promised to bring her favorite tea, he remembered the brand and how she liked it prepared. Jake had been hurt, before too, though it took him a while to share his story. His fiancée had left him while he was deployed overseas. He came home from 8 months in Afghanistan to find that she had moved out of their apartment and was already dating someone else. "I thought I knew her," Jake told Lisa one evening as they walked slowly around her neighborhood. "We had been together for 3 years. I carried her picture everywhere and wrote her letters every week. Then I found out she had been seeing this other guy for months before I even came home." "How did you get through it?" Lisa asked. "Time, mostly, and realizing that her choices said something about her, not about me. I'm a good person. I deserved better than someone who could lie to me for months." Lisa was starting to understand that Jake wasn't just being kind to her because he felt sorry for her. He genuinely enjoyed spending time with her. He laughed at her jokes and asked her opinions about things. He seemed to see her as a whole person, not just a victim who needed rescuing. 3 months after the rescue, Lisa finally felt ready to go back to work part-time. Her first day back at the hospital was harder than she expected. All the noise and chaos that she used to handle easily now felt overwhelming. But Jake had offered to pick her up after her shift, and knowing he would be there helped her get through the day. "How did it go?" he asked when she got in his truck. "Scary," Lisa admitted, "but also good. I remembered why I love being a nurse." "Want to get dinner? There's this little Mexican place I've been wanting to try." Lisa realized this was the first time Jake had suggested doing something together that wasn't about checking on her recovery. It felt like a real invitation, like he wanted to spend time with her because he enjoyed her company, not because he was worried about her. At dinner, they talked about everything except Tom and the mountain. Jake told her about his job teaching, wilderness safety classes. Lisa shared stories about her favorite patients at the hospital. They discovered they both loved old movies and terrible reality TV shows. Lisa found herself laughing more than she had in months. "I have to ask you something," Lisa said as they shared a piece of chocolate cake for dessert. "Why did you keep coming to see me? Your job was done after you brought me to the hospital." Jake looked a little embarrassed. "Honestly, at first I was just worried about you. I've rescued a lot of people. But your situation was different. Someone you trusted had hurt you so badly. I wanted to make sure you would be okay. And now? Now I come because I like you. You're funny and smart and stronger than you know. When I'm with you, I feel like the best version of myself." Lisa felt something flutter in her chest that she hadn't felt since before everything happened with Tom. But along with the happiness came fear. "Jake, I don't know if I'm ready for this. I'm still so messed up from everything that happened." "I know," Jake said simply. "I'm not asking you to be ready for anything. I'm just asking if you want to keep spending time together and see what happens." Over the next few months, Lisa and Jake's friendship slowly grew into something deeper. Jake never pushed her or made her feel like she had to move faster than she was comfortable with. When she had bad days, he would bring over movies and sit with her on the couch. When she had good days, they would go hiking on easy trails or try new restaurants. Lisa started to see how different Jake was from Tom. Tom had been charming and exciting, but he was also unreliable and selfish. Jake was steady and honest. He showed up when he said he would. He kept his promises. When he said he cared about her, his actions proved it every day. The turning point came 6 months after they met. Lisa had been having nightmares again, and she called Jake at 2 in the morning without thinking about it. He answered on the second ring and was at her house 20 minutes later with hot chocolate and a willingness to listen. As they sat in her kitchen talking, Lisa realized something that surprised her. She felt safer with Jake than she had ever felt with Tom, even during the best times. With Tom, there had always been a part of her that was trying to make him happy, trying to be the perfect girlfriend. With Jake, she could just be herself. "I think I'm falling in love with you," Lisa said quietly. Jake reached across the table and took her hand. "I've been in love with you for months. I was just waiting for you to be ready to hear it." "Are you sure about this? I'm not the same person I was before all this happened. I have trust issues and nightmares and days when I can barely get out of bed." "Lisa," Jake said, looking directly into her eyes, "you survived something that would have broken most people. You're not damaged. You're incredibly strong. And yes, I'm sure about this." For the first time since that terrible night on the mountain, Lisa felt like her future might be bright again. 1 year after that terrible night in the mountains, Lisa walked into the courthouse wearing her best blue dress and holding Jake's hand. Today was the day Tom would finally face consequences for what he had done to her. The courtroom was smaller than Lisa had expected. Tom sat at a table with his lawyer, looking older and thinner than she remembered. When he turned around and saw her, his face went pale. Lisa felt her heart racing, but Jake squeezed her hand gently, reminding her that she wasn't alone this time. The prosecutor, a kind woman named Ms. Rodriguez, had explained everything to Lisa ahead of time. Tom was being charged with several serious crimes, including kidnapping, endangerment, and conspiracy. The men he owed money to had been arrested months earlier, and they had told police everything about that night. "Your Honor," Ms. Rodriguez said to the judge, "the defendant deliberately took Ms. Lisa to a remote location and abandoned her in life-threatening conditions. She survived 4 days in freezing temperatures only because of her own medical training and incredible will to live." Lisa had to testify about what happened. As she sat in the witness chair, she looked out at the courtroom and saw Jake sitting in the front row. His calm, steady presence gave her the courage to tell her story clearly and completely. "Tom told me we were going on a romantic weekend," Lisa said. "I trusted him completely. I had no idea he was taking me somewhere to trade me for his gambling debts. When those men left me alone in the mountains, I thought I was going to die." Tom's lawyer tried to make it seem like Tom hadn't meant for her to be hurt, that he was just desperate and made a terrible mistake. But the prosecutor had phone records showing that Tom had planned the whole thing for weeks. He knew exactly what he was doing. When it was Tom's turn to speak, he stood up and looked at Lisa with tears in his eyes. "Lisa, I'm so sorry. I was scared and desperate, and I made the worst decision of my life. I never thought they would actually hurt you. I thought they would just scare you and let you go." Lisa felt nothing as she listened to his apology. Not anger, not sadness, not forgiveness. Just emptiness. This man had been the center of her world for 6 years, and now he felt like a stranger. The judge sentenced Tom to 5 years in prison. As the bailiff led him away, Tom looked back at Lisa one more time. She didn't look away, but she didn't feel sorry for him either. He had made his choices, and now he had to live with the consequences. Outside the courthouse, Lisa took a deep breath of fresh air. "It's over," she said to Jake. "How do you feel?" he asked. "Free," Lisa said, and she meant it. For the first time in a year, she wasn't looking over her shoulder or wondering if Tom might try to contact her. He was going to prison, and she could finally move on with her life completely. By this time, Lisa and Jake had been together for almost a year. They had started working as a team, teaching wilderness safety classes together. Lisa would teach the medical parts about hypothermia and treating injuries, while Jake taught survival skills and navigation. They made a good team in everything they did. Their relationship had grown slowly and naturally. Jake had never rushed her or made her feel like she had to get over her trauma faster. When she had bad days, he was patient. When she had good days, he celebrated with her. Most importantly, he had shown her through his actions that not everyone would betray her trust. Lisa had learned to tell the difference between real love and the fake kind she had with Tom. With Tom, love had felt exciting, but unstable, like walking on thin ice. With Jake, love felt solid and safe, like standing on firm ground. She never had to wonder if Jake was lying to her or hiding something important. 6 months after the trial, Jake planned a surprise that would change both their lives forever. He told Lisa they were going on a hiking trip to celebrate the anniversary of her rescue. She thought it was a sweet idea, a way to turn a terrible memory into something positive. They hiked to a beautiful overlook with a view of the whole valley below. Lisa had been up here before with Jake, but today felt different. He seemed nervous, fidgeting with his backpack and checking his watch. "Lisa," Jake said, taking her hands as they sat on a rock overlooking the mountains. "A year and a half ago, I found you in the worst moment of your life, but finding you led me to the best part of mine." Lisa's heart started beating faster as Jake got down on one knee and pulled out a small box. "You are the strongest, kindest, most amazing person I know. You survived something that would have broken most people, and you came out of it even more beautiful than before. I want to spend the rest of my life making sure you never doubt how loved and valuable you are." Lisa started crying before Jake even finished asking the question, "Will you marry me?" "Yes," Lisa said, laughing and crying at the same time. "Yes, absolutely yes." The ring was perfect, simple and elegant, just like Jake himself. As he slipped it onto her finger, Lisa thought about how different this moment was from anything she had ever imagined with Tom. This felt real and honest and full of hope for the future. Their wedding 8 months later was everything Lisa had dreamed of. They got married outdoors in a beautiful mountain meadow, surrounded by friends and family. Jake's rescue team stood with him as groomsmen, and Lisa's sister Amy was her maid of honor. Instead of traditional vows, Lisa and Jake had written their own. Lisa's vows talked about how Jake had not only saved her life, but had helped her learn to trust again. Jake's vows promised to always be honest with her and to love her through whatever challenges life might bring. "I used to think love meant finding someone who would never hurt you," Lisa said, looking into Jake's eyes as they stood under an arch of wildflowers. "But now I know that real love means finding someone who would never choose to hurt you, someone who will help you heal when the world hurts you." After the ceremony, as they danced to their first song as husband and wife, Lisa felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She had lost everything she thought she wanted with Tom, but that loss had led her to something better than she had ever imagined. "Do you ever regret what happened?" Jake asked her as they swayed together. "If you hadn't gone through all that, we might never have met." Lisa thought about it for a moment. "I regret that Tom hurt me, and I regret that I wasted so many years with someone who didn't really love me. But I don't regret that it led me to you." As their first year of marriage passed, Lisa and Jake continued their work teaching survival, skills and wilderness safety. Every person they trained, every life they potentially saved, felt like a way of turning Lisa's terrible experience into something meaningful. Lisa often thought about the scared, broken woman Jake had found in that cabin. That woman could never have imagined that her worst day would eventually lead to her best life. She had learned that sometimes you have to lose everything you think you want to find everything you actually need. And every night, as she fell asleep, next to her husband in their warm, safe home, Lisa was grateful for the long journey that had brought her exactly where she belonged.